Greetings once and all. This talk today is focused on a quick look at the interior of the Tesla semi-truck. We were able to get some footage, and I thought you guys might find it interesting, especially because I'm getting asked about it by a couple of my viewers. So don't watch if you don't want to see the inside. I apologize. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Bonjour, Vigate, Strasvice, Ni Hao Ma. I'm doing a short post today taking a look at the inside of the Tesla semi-truck. As we know, there's a central console idea where the driver is sort of in the middle of the vehicle with the capability to stand up if he or she chooses to do so. As you can see, in addition, they've made judicious use of, instead of one, two of the screens that are being used for the Model 3. And as I shared in my earlier video on the inside of the truck, I think the Mercedes inside is actually better because it basically uses two iPad screens, and the driver can choose to take the screen off of its pedestal in his hand and actually manipulate data that way versus having to just use it where it sits in terms of it being mounted. The second item that comes to mind here is I included information about the special glass that Tesla is really proud of. I haven't driven trucks I've driven trucks, but I haven't driven them enough to have issues with objects flying through the window. So an appreciation for this may be lost on me, but if it works and the customers love it, I love it too. I don't have a great opinion, good or bad, about the whole thing. The third item is the whole jumper seat behind the driver. My initial thought was, if a full-size seat has worked for this long for both drivers, and both drivers have been comfortable with it, why not just stick with what's worked for the last 50 years? If there's something new that Tesla has come up with, I have to respect that. I have to admit that I'm not particularly jazzed one way, really good, really bad, towards the inside of the vehicle. Most of the early, let's say the first few years of production, will go to large companies that have a lot of resources. So the power they have with ordering large numbers of vehicles is that if they want changes that reflect driver optimizations, the inside of the truck isn't going to look anything like it does now anyway, because these are very rich people. These are people spending a lot of money, and they'll be customizing to be applied across a large number of vehicles. So I think Tesla is going to make changes to the inside to reflect what the fleet managers perceive as being an optimization for their users. So I'd say the inside is relevant, but I also say the inside is slightly irrelevant. Another item that comes up is that one of my PhD buddies pointed out that Tesla seems to be spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to get the driver in the middle of the vehicle, and it seems that by cheating in on both sides of the vehicle, you're able to get better aerodynamics and start to pick up miles that can be used as part of the wind profile of the truck to sort of reduce that wind resistance and therefore improve gas mileage. In theory, I always was amazed by cars because this is kind of weird. I hope you guys don't laugh at me. I went to the Toyota factory. Toyota used to have their headquarters in a place called Glendale, California. So I roll in to interview them, and this is probably 15 years ago now. And I'm standing there talking with one of the PR reps, and she looks at me and says, well, we're at the 2-year mark on the vehicle that you're looking at, so we're going to do a skin update on the vehicle right now, and and then keep going from there. I was kind of surprised at her listening to her, because she was like, I'm thinking about the whole car is sort of in my mind at that point. A lot of cars, how they look was a critical part of the overall experience for me of cars, and I didn't necessarily think of them as like skin, i.e. just an exterior that's almost irrelevant, but it's kind of relevant. And so I kind of bring this up because, hardcore things like the batteries, the drivetrain, etc., are sort of fixed. Tesla has the brains and flexibility to make changes to what customers might really want, especially if they're willing to order large numbers of vehicles. So when you see elements of the vehicle, you could almost call it skin, because if a big buyer says, here's $50 million, you're going to say, what changes would you like? And we'll put in those changes across your vehicle. So the bottom line of that comment is, yeah, it really matters what's inside the truck right now for us to look at. But once those fleet buyers get a hold of it, they can choose to keep what's there or make changes. And they've got enough orders going through to cause Tesla to make those changes happily to appease them and make sure they get the sale. And it's not going to get any sweat off Tesla's back, because they can just charge her more. So totally irrelevant, and Tesla has their motives for how and why they made the choices that they have, and typically it's that there's engineering elements to it, and I think the Aero decision kind of makes sense in this case. The one other thing from interior that I'm having a debate with some of my advisors on is the whole idea of going without any rearview mirrors and instead using cameras. Interesting decision by Tesla. One of my viewers was saying the government won't allow that. You have to have rearview mirrors, otherwise you're done. I don't know the answer to that one. I'll be intrigued to see what you guys end up coming up with on that. But, you do have that form factor going in, and I think it's interesting. I've never tried it. I tend to be concerned about cameras having some kind of issue, and if you do, you now don't have rear view or side view for your vehicle, and that's a nightmare. Another form factor issue about these mirrors is just the fact that in the good old days of right now, you could look out the window and see if there's a vehicle to your left as you're trying to make turns if you're in the driver's seat of a semi. With the new configuration of the driver being in the middle, you do have to rely on cameras to see what's out there, as well as sensors that have been built into the truck. And so what was a simple matter of peeking out the window now becomes a slightly more complex matter of staring at screens to make sure you don't run over or hit people that are next to you or in front of you, etc. So an interesting decision. Again, is this a major item? Probably not, because you could just stick some rearview mirrors on that baby if you don't like how Tesla's doing it, and it's not a lot of effort to make that change. I have to admit that I'm not a truck driver at this point, and therefore am not clear fully on sort of the up and down sides of what Tesla's doing, but I respect their engineering teams and the efforts to make changes that they think customers will like and that are well thought through. All of these can be changed, and so therefore I don't think it's a major sweat deal if you don't like what's there. I guess the last final thing is that you'll notice as you look, you'll see that they're going with the one windshield wiper deal across. I've seen this on some Mercedes and used it, etc. I mean, if it works, who cares? I don't, I guess it's less rubber because you have, instead of having two windshield pieces, one will do. Makes me a little nervous about whether or not, if you're in a bad wind or snow situation, if you lose one, you don't have the other one as a backup that's sitting on the front. So maybe you carry one or two extras just in case you have heavy that you have to deal with. I guess it's something that still can be modified quickly if there's any shortcomings to that setup. I look forward to your comments on this. I'm intrigued because you're, we can see what Tesla had to say about the inside of the vehicle in terms of the choices that were made, and you can see them on camera right now. I would have to say that my focus is on, can the truck really go 500 miles? And if it can, you know, who cares about all the other form factors you can bolt on or aftermarket all day long to get everything else fixed, but you can't get 500 miles off a battery. So as far as I'm concerned, the inside of the truck is fantastic, terrific, because at any point, wealthy buyers can make changes that their drivers think are important, and Tesla will do those changes because they want the business and because the fleet managers / drivers think it's important. But I think it's great that we're going to have this vehicle out on the streets because it gives us a chance to really go after how the pollution from these trucks impacts our society. And so I think that's about it in terms of my analysis today. I apologize, this is not usual. I usually have a strong opinion one way or the other, and I want to say more deep analysis, but I haven't, Tesla's not offering up, and there's what we can see, and I'm looking forward to folks that are more experts on this that are on our page to sort of throw in below whatever comments you might have that you think are important for us to be aware of. This is Greg for Tesla Planet Insight. Please like and subscribe. Jus maskut au revoir, lehitraot, Khoda Hafez.